Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling one of the biggest questions there is. What actually makes an economy grow? We're going to dive right into the fundamentals that decide the wealth of nations.
It's one of the first things you notice about the world, right? Why are there such massive, glaring differences in prosperity between countries? The answer, when you really get down to it, is all about the mechanics of economic growth.
So, to even begin to answer that huge question, we have to get two key ideas straight. People use them interchangeably all the time, but in economics, they mean very different things. And trust me, that distinction is absolutely crucial.
Okay, first up, growth versus development. Getting this difference right lays the groundwork for everything else we're going to talk about today.
So here's the main difference. Economic growth is all about an economy getting bigger. More output, more income, just more stuff. Think of it like adding more bricks to a house. Economic development, on the other hand, is about the economy getting better. This means real structural changes, better technology, better health, better education. It's not just adding bricks, it's redesigning the entire blueprint for a smarter, more advanced house. You see, you can have growth without development, but for lasting progress, you really need both.
So if that's the what, now let's get to the how. What's the engine that actually pushes an economy forward? We're going to look at three major theories that try to answer that exact question. First, we have the Harrod-Domar model. Now this one's a classic, and it has a pretty mechanical view of growth. It boils everything down to a simple but really powerful idea. A country's growth rate depends entirely on how much it saves and how well it invests those savings. Simple, right? Savings are the fuel, and investment is the engine.
This model basically works with two big levers. First, there's the saving income rate. That's just what percentage of its income a country is actually putting aside. And second, you have the capital output ratio, which sounds complicated but just means how efficiently are you using your money? The more you save and the smarter you invest, the faster your economy is going to grow.
But, the Harrod-Domar model had a big flaw. It kind of implied you could grow forever just by piling up more and more capital. The Solow growth model came along and said, not so fast. Robert Solow agreed that saving and investment are super important, but he argued that the real sustainable driver of long-term growth wasn't just more stuff, but smarter stuff. In other words, technological progress.
The key insight here is this idea of diminishing returns, and it's really intuitive. Think about it. Giving a farmer a tractor for the first time, that's a huge productivity boost. But giving that same farmer a second tractor, the boost is way smaller. A 10th tractor probably does nothing. The same thing happens to an entire economy. Eventually, just adding more machines stops giving you a big bang for your buck. According to Solow, the only way to escape that trap and keep growing is through technology, finding new, better ways to do everything.
This brings us to a more modern way of thinking. The Solow model was a giant leap forward, but it treated technology like it was some kind of magic that just appeared out of nowhere. Endogenous growth theory says, hang on a second. Endogenous just means from within. And the big idea here is that we can actually create growth on purpose by investing in the right things, not just in machines, but in people and in knowledge. This theory puts the spotlight on what's called human capital, basically the skills, training, and knowledge of your entire population. When you invest in education, you're building a workforce that can create things like software or biotech. And here's the really amazing part. Unlike a tractor, knowledge actually has increasing returns. The more ideas you have, the easier it is to come up with new ideas. It creates this powerful, self-fueling cycle of growth that's driven by our own ingenuity.
Okay, so we've got these theories on how to grow. But how do we even know if they're working? How do we measure an economy's size and health? Well, let's take a look at the official scorecard.
The biggest number, the one you always hear about, is gross domestic product, or GDP. The definition is really precise, and it's worth knowing. It's the market value of all final goods and services. So we count the finished car, not the tires and the steel that went into it. And it has to be produced within a country's borders in a specific time frame, usually a quarter or a year. It's the headline number for an economy's total output.
This brings us to a beautiful core principle of how GDP works. Just like the slide says, for an entire economy, income has to equal expenditure. It's a simple but really profound idea. Every single dollar you spend is, At that exact same moment, $1 of income for someone else. Mr. Verma's expense is the painter's income. Every transaction has two sides, and that's what makes it possible to measure the whole thing.
So, because of that neat income equals expenditure rule, economists have 3 different ways to calculate GDP. They can add up the value of everything produced, they can add up all the income that was earned, or they can add up all the money that was spent. And, in a perfect world, all 3 methods should give you the exact same number.
All right, let's get to our final section. We've been talking all about how to grow the economic pie. But there's a powerful and sneaky force that can shrink the value of every single slice, often without you even noticing it. We need to talk about inflation.
I love this quote from the economist Colborn. It's the perfect, most intuitive way to understand inflation. It's simply a situation where too much money chases too few goods. If the amount of money floating around grows faster than our ability to actually make stuff, well, prices have nowhere to go but up.
And not all inflation is the same. There's a whole spectrum. A little bit, what we call creeping inflation, is actually something most economists think is fine, even healthy. But when it starts galloping into double-digit territory, that's when things get dangerous. And then you have the absolute worst-case scenario, hyperinflation, where money basically becomes worthless overnight.
So who actually wins and who loses here? Well, inflation causes this kind of stealthy transfer of wealth. The winners? Borrowers. Think about it. They get to pay back their debt with money that's worth less than when they borrowed it. Pretty good deal for them. The losers are the savers and the lenders. The money they get back, or that's just sitting in their savings account, just doesn't buy as much as it used to. It's like a silent tax on anyone who saves their money.
So, let's pull it all together. Here are the 4 big things to take away. First, growth is about getting bigger. Development is about getting better. Second, real, long-term growth is a mix of investment, technology, and people. Third, GDP is the main scorecard we use to measure everything. And finally, you always have to watch out for inflation, that silent tax that can eat away at all your hard-earned progress.
And all this leaves us with a fascinating, real-world puzzle that central banks wrestle with every single day. If a little inflation is good, but a lot is a complete disaster, then what's the right amount? Finding that perfect balance is a constant tightrope walk with massive consequences for all of us. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.